So, I'm sure at some point you've had an image where, here, let me make that a bit bigger. I'm sure at some point you've had an image where there was a subject in it that you wanted to remove. It's pretty common, I would say, especially given the context that certain images might actually, or you might have a content in one image that you want to utilize, and then use a background from a different image or something like that, and then having the ability to go in and sort of remove subject matter or take out elements and is really useful in this case. So what I'm going to show you today is about removing those subjects from your images. But what I'm also showcasing today is a way to combine images together. I'll talk about that in a bit more depth as we go through, but it's a really powerful tool, and we're going to be looking at basically using layers with copy and pasted elements and masking. We'll also be talking about Smart Erase and sort of its limitations. Smart Erase is an incredibly powerful tool, but there's certain things it can't do very well, and we'll talk about that. Okay, let's get started. So, on a fundamental level, I guess, that's maybe the best place to start here. On a fundamental level, you've probably engaged with the what we call the repair tool in ACDSee. And the repair tool is typically located as a component of the filter menu. And I believe in develop mode, actually, it is the last option on the series of options. Yeah. And in repair, we have, in at least in develop mode, we have heal, clone, and blended clone. And in edit mode, we have spot removal as a component of this as well. But so you're aware of sort of on a very basic level, we have the ability to heal, clone, and do a blended clone. And we'll talk about these options in a little bit more detail. In edit mode, which is where going to be the focus of where I showcase some of the later tools, I'll talk about those in a bit more depth as well. But the repair tool is a component of the enhance window on the left here in the filter mode. So I'll just hide some of these other ones here to showcase what I'm talking about. I would assume probably that most of you have engaged with this tool before. I would say maybe like 80 to 90% of you have probably used repair. So spot removal is so we're going to be looking at basically a sort of a manual method, automated method, and then a very effective manual method at removing sort of subject matter in your images. So in this image, I have a bunch of people that are skiing and snowboarding, that sort of thing. And let's just give the example that I want to perhaps remove one of these people from my image here. Well, one of the methods to do that is by using blended clone or the Smart Erase tool. And Smart Erase is also a component of layers, which we'll talk about that as well. But in the filter mode, this mode that appears on the left-hand side here, this tool that appears on the left-hand side, I just want to note that when I'm engaging with this filter window that's on this left-hand side here, filters are a destructive adjustment. So they're not going to provide you something that you can go back and edit in the future. And so, in general, what I recommend is that when we're engaging something like the repair tool or any of these sort of major tools in the filter menu here, as opposed to adjustment layers, I recommend getting into the habit of making a duplication of our base image here. And I'll explain why. But what I'm going to do is I can either right click on my image and duplicate my layer, or I can click on this duplicate icon right here. And what that's going to do is it's just going to make a copy of my image layer here. So a copy is something I can work from while I maintain the original within this like layer order sequence that I have here. And this enables me to reference actively a destructive adjustment and reference the original prior to any destructive adjustments. What I'm describing right now is this ability to basically preserve some degree of non-destructiveness while working with a destructive tool, like in this case, the repair tool. So I'll just go in and I'll right click this copied layer and I'll just call it repair just so we can sort of differentiate between the two. I'll call this one original so we can see those as well. But the repair tool, is the one what we're going to apply these changes here to, and we'll just make sure that we have the repair layer selected. For reference, a layer is selected when it has this little blue highlight when you move it, or it'll have this like lighter color overlay that appears sort of underneath the actual words and the thumbnail. So we just know that this layer is selected because it has that condition. Alternatively, if I was selecting the original, you can see that that reverse is the case as well. So I have this image here. I have it selected. So if I navigate to the repair tool on the top left in the enhance section here, this gives me the ability to engage with this tool. So, so there's a couple different functions. Maybe the one that you'll be most familiar with is this clone function. Clone enables you to make a copy of a section of your image, basically set a copy zone by which to paste that copy zone into a part of your image that you want to replace. And I'll showcase exactly what I mean. I'm going to remove the feathering because I think it makes it a bit easier to see. But if I was to right click here, you can see that that is set. There's like a profile that is set that I can then apply elsewhere. So if I wanted to copy this section right here and paste it, I can do so. There is this little outline that appears around the edge of our copied segment. As you can see, there's this periphery of the circle that we're working with. And a strict clone will absolutely just copy that section and apply it to the area you're clicking in. So as you can see, if we sort of zoom in a little bit, there's some pretty significant issues with this copy that appear here. There's some issues of shading right here, and there's an issue of shading up top here. So I would say that from a standpoint of applying this change, this would have been a failure. I think that if we were to zoom out, we could see that there was a big circle here, and that's probably what we're trying to avoid from a visual perspective. Certain copies are going to be made easier based on the context. So in this instance right here, we have our subject matter right here that might be much easier to remove because the background in which the person is situated is more homogeneous. So if I was to just take a right click right here next to the subject matter and then apply the clone here, you can see that that's a much better clone than the one that appeared down at the bottom here. And again, all of that has to do with context. So the background that we're seeing is the thing that's informing our decision-making process and allowing us to have a better understanding of what's going to be copied and what's going to, what the ultimate output is going to be. This is going to come up over and over and over again throughout this workshop. So I just want to highlight that, and this is like, I guess, a fundamental rule when we talk about replacing subject matter, is the background is really going to matter, especially when there are patterns in the background. That's going to be a huge component that we'll talk about it today. And I just want to highlight that basically we need to be cognizant of what we're copying from because certain backgrounds are going to make this much harder. So because this background, at least in the top section here, is very homogeneous, this was like a perfect, clone. So the other thing we could apply here is a degree of feathering that would provide this sort of copied edge by which we're engaging with when we copy our image here. So hopefully everyone can see this nib. The nib is just a series of two circles. The inside circle is going to be our strict copy. So it's going to look exactly when we go to apply it over top of our subject matter, it's going to be applied exactly how we see that. But there's this second circle that exists on the edge that goes out to this checkered section here, and that's what we call a feathering. So a feathering is a very slow opacity adjustment from basically 100 to 0. And what this feathering does is it makes the edge A, less sharp, and B, it provides some degree of, I guess, a gradient from the inside circle to the absolute outside circle. So to showcase this, if I was to make a copy here and apply it here, You can see actually that's even almost a tough example because it looks like there's a bit of feathering that exists on the inside here. But let's see if I can do a better job. Yeah, so it's not going to do a perfect job here. It's actually gonna leave much to be desired in the center here. So, which leads us to our sort of next section that we're going to talk about. Whereas, like, this might work on really small examples, or I can set a clone right here, and I can sort of paint on changes to my subject by repeatedly referencing the area that I'm selecting here. And as you can see, I have it set to 100. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, if we can reduce it and then apply it. And so that sort of addresses the top section there where there was such a sharp adjustment, and the bottom section where there was a sharp adjustment. But there's still going to be issues of inference here where it looks at the edge, and we can see that there's a difference between this, shadow and the next. And I can go in and I can apply, new clones that sort of remove this component here. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some challenges here in regards to this. So there's other methods by which to make smart erase applications. I'm just showcasing the clone tool right now. The ones that I use most often when I'm interacting with the repair tool is the blended clone and the smart erase function. So they work really differently. Blended clone is going to take this same functionality that we have with the clone tool, but it's going to blend it in with the background itself and sort of works like a combination of smart erase and the clone tool at the same time. And then smart erase is going to use an algorithm to determine what is being replaced. So we'll talk about each of these. Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cancel and reopen this in the repair tool rather than go back a bunch of steps with undo. So I guess what I'm trying to highlight right now is when it comes to a strict clone of our subject matter, backgrounds really matter. There's going to be certain instances where this is going to be replaced much easier. Whereas on the bottom here, when we have some variation in tone and even some textural differences between where the background of the skier is here, there's going to be some greater challenges here. So if we use blended clone, like I said, is going to sort of apply a blend of, yeah, so it's going to take a copy of the area that we were inferring from, and it's going to blend it in. And as you can see, it sort of positions it in such a way that removes that sort of harsh edge and does a good job at sort of filling in some of the background area here. But as you can see here, because there's this straight line that exists here in the background, there's still going to be some challenges when it comes to applying even a blended clone in this area. So in this case, we have a slightly better copy of this section, and then we can go in and we can apply some cloning or some healing functions to clean this sort of section up here. But blended clone is going to basically apply a clone tool to the area that we've selected by using the right click tool. And then it's going to apply an adjustment in that area, and then it's going to try to do a very good job of seamlessly filling in the edges there. So we're going to go back a couple steps here. And then the Smart Erase tool is truly what it allows us to do here is make a selection of our subject matter. And then what the tool is going to do is it's actually going to, using an algorithm, it's going to fill in the blanks. And so it's going to create a background for us. So this is sort of more of an AI tool than it is necessarily a manual function. But if I select this area here, it's going to apply a adjustment of just that area, and it's going to fill in the background based on what it thinks works for the section here. Which in this case, I think is probably one of the better operations. There's still a little bit of issues here with this kind of line right here, but this I think filled in quite well given the context here. And I can go in and I can see, like, let's maybe apply this same smart erase function to other subject matters in our image here and see how it fills them in. Pretty good. Well, actually quite good in this section in comparison to the previous one. So all I'm doing here is rather than using the blended clone, the clone or the heal tool, where I have to make a right-click suggestion to enact to apply, the Smart Erase tool sort of in this case works by just selecting that I paint around the subject that I'm intending to replace with something else. Okay, so we're going to take a step back away from there's certain degrees of effectiveness here depending on the tool, and all of these things can be cleaned up with a little bit of time and going through and making changes to these images based on sort of certain tools that we're using as we go through. So the other thing I want to highlight is that the Smart Erase tool doesn't just exist as a component of the filter menu. So Smart Erase also exists as a component of this top toolbar here. And so this is still going to need us to reference a copied layer. So what I want to do here is I want to make sure that I'm interacting with a layer that I've duplicated unless I want to make a destructive change to our image. So I will just click the Smart Erase tool and we'll go through and we'll actually apply the same adjustment here. We're just going to select our subject here. And as you can see, it's going to do its best to remove the subject in my image here. Or actually, it doesn't seem like it did very, oh, there it goes. Okay. So same sort of effect applied here in regards to our subject here. Couple more things to know about Smart Erase is that Smart Erase doesn't have to be applied from using the brush tool. This is maybe a not as well-known aspect of the function, but we can also just make a selection in general of a particular subject matter. So I can use the lasso selection here, or any form of selection tool like the brush selection tool or the elliptical selection tool. And I can just select around my subject matter here. And then what I can do is with my subject matter selected, and I can actually go through and I can make multiple selections here of my image. So I can select these two subjects here, and I can navigate to the select tool and Smart Erase just from the dropdown. And what this is going to do is it's going to apply that function to all of the areas that I've selected in my image. At the same time, rather than me having to go through and brushing on each individual component at the same time. So as you can see here, that did a pretty good job of erasing these subjects from my image. It looks pretty contextual. I don't really see much issues of texture in this part of this image. And now we can just reference the before and after with those subjects removed from my image. So just to highlight that again, all I did was make a selection with one of these selection tools. Selection tools inclusively are the brush selection tool, the shape selection tool, the rectangular selection tool, elliptical selection tool, the lasso, which is what I used here, and then also the magic wand and the object selection tool. So you can use any one of these selection tools and then just navigate to select and utilize Smart Erase with your selection active. You can click on that and it's going to apply a function where we, in this case, we'll apply that Smart Erase to multiple elements, not just the original element. I'm sort of moving quite quickly through these more, I guess, automated functions because I want to get to the more complicated method by which to, address selection removals in our image here, but we're going to get to that. But basically, all I want to highlight is that we have a couple methods of actually blending out or using clone or heal tools to remove our subject matter. We can do that by navigating to the filter menu and destructively making an adjustment on our image. Or we can utilize Smart Erase tools by either using the Smart Erase brush from the top toolbar here, as well as using the select and Smart Erase function with one of these select tools active. So we have a couple different methods here. And again, I'm choosing to showcase this using a copied layer. And the reason why is this. If I navigate to save and save as, and I save this file as an ACDSee file format, ACDSee file formats hold layers, of which the repair and original are layers. So if I was to save this as an ACDSee file, click save here, it's going to write the file. The benefit of this is I would have access to both of these layers in one file. So unlike if I was to navigate to my original image, obviously my original image is not going to contain those adjustments. If I was to navigate to a saved JPEG image with those subjects removed, I would not have access to that history of me removing or basically removing those sections of my image. So it's lossy in that case. Whereas this ACDSee file, even though I'm interacting with this destructive adjustment that sort of changes my image permanently, at least I have reference to the original image as well in my drop-down order. So I have a file that is functionally more editable moving forward than just interacting with my original image. I have a history here that includes a repair adjustment, or rather a smart erase of the subject matter. So I just want to highlight the fact that even when we're interacting with destructive adjustments, as long as we're saving our file as an ACDSee file and we have access to a layered history, like we have here with our duplicated layer, we have some degree of control over our final image. Okay, I have another image here that I'd sort of like to highlight just as a level of difficulty. As I mentioned earlier, backgrounds matter, and so certain things are not going to be as easy to make smart erases in regards, or to make a sort of removal of a subject matter. So in my image here, I have these two subjects here, right? And there's a couple elements that are going to make this quite a bit more challenging. First and foremost, one of the things that's going to make this removal, if I was to just sort of treat these two subjects as what I want to get rid of in this image. The one issue that I'm going to come across is that when I'm interacting with something like Smart Erase references the image itself. So it's going to look for subject matter around it to try to remove these when it goes to remove these subjects. So if I even just use the brush tool here, so the brush tool selected, duplicate of my image here, and if I just brush around my subject here, let's see how it does. So when it goes to apply a smart erase of my image here, it's actually referencing the image itself. It looks like it's referencing a different part of my image to replace with. And as you can see here, it looks like it actually references the woman beneath it when it goes to make that selection. So smart erase is fallible, right? It's not going to do a great job in every context. If I approach this differently, if I go about using the smart erase tool for these subjects, and I apply a smart erase here, let's see how this does. So similar functionality here. We're actually applying a smart erase referencing other parts of our image here, and it's producing errors. So there's basically two things I want you to consider when we're interacting with a tool like smart erase. The first is that the actual content of the image really matters. So a smart erase is basically saying like, hey, when we make a selection of these two subjects here, it's saying, well, what do you want me to fill it with? And it's looking through for other parts of the image that it references when it goes to make those adjustments. And as you can see, there's an issue of difficulty here. So the second thing to keep in mind is the reason why this image is also contextually quite difficult is because of the not necessarily the subject matter themselves, but the background and the texture of the floor pattern. So let's say, for example, okay, Smart Erase, we understand that Smart Erase is not doing an exceptional job of removing them. It's leaving what we call artifacts when we go to apply it. So these artifacts are, to me, that's like obviously unacceptable. We can't do that way. So we know that there's a certain degree of error that's occurring here. This image is too busy. There's too much going on. But if we look at the actual pattern of the floor here, this pattern is going to provide some difficulty when we go to approach this manually. So let's do that. Let's do a manual repair tool on this image and talk about the function here. So if we were to go, let's say blended clone, and we were to try to find a section to blend with, right? What's going to happen is, well, we can blend here. In this case, we would blend in, but the floor pattern, it's going to produce some challenges. I might be able to, in this case, remove a subject matter from my image. They're, I can totally remove them from my image here, but I'm going to produce this like wacky looking floor pattern that's going to be at the bottom here. And so what I'm trying to showcase is that there's some real limitations when it comes to removing subject matter from my images. First and foremost, if we can't rely on smart erase because there's basically nothing to reference in the image, it's too busy. But we're also struggling with manual methods on the basis that this particular image has a pattern that we want to maintain because it actually provides the context for our image. That's super, super important. There might be, parts of our image that are maybe like easier to remove in this case than others. Like if I was to treat this as a smart erase subject matter. Even then, there's some issues here. Even though that this is lighter here and there's less texture, there's still some issues that emerge right here with the pattern that exists beneath. What I'm trying to highlight is that what we actually need is, in this image, I have this really grid-like pattern on the bottom that exists underneath. This is going to present a hard challenge. Like this is going to be an image that would take potentially hours to remove this subject matter accurately. So what I would suggest is that when we're looking at removing or engaging with subject matter to erase, we have to be aware of two things. The first thing is how busy is our image? And the second thing is what are the actual textures at play that are going to prevent challenge, are going to basically produce challenges for us to remove our subject matter. I guess what I would like to highlight now is that there's some degrees of backgrounds that are going to be much easier to remove on the base of busyness. And I'll look at that now and showcase what I mean. Unlike in this image where there's this very obvious grid pattern, I have an image here which has this really busy background because there's this area of all this the ocean waves coming towards our subject matter. This is actually much easier to work with, and I'm going to show you why. This image is going to be easier to work with because you can actually sort of blend in and use masking to remove some of this subject matter here. So let's say the second person or image here, while maintaining some degree of coherence with the background. So what I would like to do now is transition from our previous image where we talked about the difficulties of it based on the texture and also the busyness of the image to looking at this image and trying to address this particular image's subject matter here. So what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to start with a duplicated layer here, and we'll just rename them again. I'll call this one original, and I'll call this one a copy, or I guess the repair. And let's just have a look at how easy this image is to make a standard repair action, like a smart erase or a blended clone. So I'm going to open up this tool, and let's have a look here. So if I was to just do a smart erase of my subject here, let's try that, get the chord in there as well. Let's see how it does. Yeah, so it's going to produce artifacts here, right? And again, this is not a perfect tool. This is an automated function that's going to look at the surrounding area and try to produce an outcome for us. But in this case, it leaves artifacts. If we were to approach this from a blended clone perspective, let's say, let's make a blend right here and apply it right here. We can go in and we can sort of slowly remove our subject matter here. But one of the things that's going to pop up, as you can see, is that it's going to produce a little bit of a lighting difference here. So and also there's a challenge here with some of the paste that I've applied. So there's some issues with maybe just using a blended clone on its own here. So what I would like to showcase is actually let's approach this from a layers perspective rather than just trying to remove our subject matter. So what I want to showcase here is we can actually just hide this repair function for a while and just use the original for now. Another way to address this is to make copies of parts of our image and sort of pattern them over our subject matter. So let's showcase what I mean. Um, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a sort of copies of several parts of my image and shift them onto other elements of my image here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool to do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this portion here. Let's just select, actually, let's do a better selection. Let's just do a selection like this. So I have this square selected here. This is a method that I learned through Alec Watson. He was talking about removing like background hairs in a subject matter. And he showcased like a really interesting way to do this. And to do this, he sort of copied parts of the hair that didn't have these the movement or the stray hairs in them, and then just applied them to other parts of the image to sort of create a copy. And so we're going to approach this really similarly, but we're going to use it to remove the subject matter. So I'm just going to copy this. You'll see this little pop-up that says image copied to clipboard. And then what I can do is I can paste this. And if I move it over, you can see that when I move it over, well, actually, let's go back up a little bit. When I go to move it, this bounding box appears. And if I move this up, you can see exactly what it is I copied. So I copied this section here of this wave, and it allows me to move this section. And as you can see, my copy is right here. It's this little thumbnail right here. It enables me to place this image wherever I want. So I can go through and I could place this image, say, here. And when I go to commit it, so it's sort of roughly within the area I want it to be, you can see that the layer pops up here. It's still quite rough. So what I would want to do is I would want to go through the process of erasing and sort of gently blending in some of the areas around the edge here. One of the things that this is really valuable for in a way that the blended clone tool isn't is that it doesn't really approach this by layering that over top, and it doesn't create that sort of color difference. So if I look at this layer here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the masking tool. And so I have this layer here, and I'm just simply going to click masking. And when I go to mask it, this little mask thumbnail will pop up. So the mask icon, just to showcase this again, is I'm going to click on the layer in question here, which is this copied section. And then I'm going to click on the add a layer mask. This mask pops up. And when it does, what I can do is I can simply take the brush tool itself and brush on, or rather remove, sections of this image with this brush tool active. So what this gives me the ability to do is fully feather and slowly just work my way around the edge of this image until it feels like it's fully justified in the image. So if I go through and I can remove certain sections of this image here or paint them back on using the right and left clicks. When I'm interacting with a mask, what's happening is I'm basically hiding or showing parts of that image by utilizing a white or black brush. So when this mask is applied, you can see that around the edge of this thumbnail here is all of this black section. So this is all black, and the inside is white. And so what black tells us is that that part of our mask has no content, or it is hidden from view, versus this white section, which showcases actually what I'm seeing in my image here, which is what I'm seeing is the area that I've copied and pasted onto my subject matter. But the cool thing about this is that when I use a brush tool, either black or white, brushing black removes that part of my my image from view. So I can brush off the subject matter on the top here, or alternatively, I can brush it back using the tool. So it gives me this ability to actually hide or showcase parts of this layer that I copied here. What we can do is we can go through and we can make multiple copies. And the way that this works, and part of the reason why it actually works much better than in a previous example where the people were standing over that rigid rectangular floor, is because there's actually so much variation in my image here that this actually gives me something to copy from that allows me to justify it because we aren't going to be able to see that the detail difference here in the same way that we will see a difference in detail with a floor plan that's rigid like that. When I'm making copies, one of the things I want to keep in mind is I want to copy from the original image, not from a copy, basically. Because when I copy from a copy, there's not going to be content necessarily in the area that I'm copying from. Whereas obviously the original image is a copy of the original image, and so it's going to have the content to copy from. What I mean is, for example, if I was to copy from accidentally from this top layer, let's say I was going to copy this here, right? Well, I already know that this isn't actually in the layer, that there is no content outside of what of this square here. So when I go to copy and let's say paste here, yeah, it's going to produce nothing that's useful to me here. So what I want to do here, oops, let's delete that. What I want to do is make sure that I'm engaging with this original file here and copying from the original. So I'm going to click on it and then let's make another lasso selection of just this area right here. I'm going to copy from the original and paste, and it'll allow me to move it down. So then I can move this section right here. Click OK. And then what I can do once again is once I have this layer, I can decide I either want it on top of the previous layer. Oops. Why isn't this moving? That's odd. Let's see. Okay, well, I'll address that in a moment. But I can place it on top like this here. So there's my layer over top of the previous layer. And then I can, let's say we will hide this layer. So I'm going to take this mask here and I'm going to turn this layer off temporarily. And then what I can do is I can use my brush tool. Once my mask is turned off, it's black here. I can use a white brush to then brush on that layer. And so when combined with the previous layer, I can slowly remove the subject matter in my image here. I'm going to take another layer. I'm going to take this original here. We're going to get rid of the shadow. So to get rid of the shadow, I'm going to select a portion like this. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste, and I'm simply going to move this selection over. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to make another mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's mask this black and use a white brush to slowly paint this on. And then I'll paint it on over top of the previous layer and remove that shadow. So we can move up. We can take a section over here or over here, it looks like. Let's try over here. It might be too bright to apply it over here, but we can try. So all I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm making copies of reference sections on my image. And even though my image has lots of texture and detail, because there's so much texture and detail, I can actually work in stages and remove parts of my image until it's complete. So Norm said, when using this method, I make it a point to be aware of repeating patterns in the pasted content and adjust with additional cloning. Pardon me. And this is, I think, a really good point. And part of what we're doing here is we're repeating over and over and over again. We're trying to like repeat these patterns that we're seeing in the background when we're applying this copy and paste method with the masks. And what's helping mask these images in is this feathering process by which we sort of erase these hard edges and recontextualize the copied layer with the base image that appears beneath it. Let's try. I'm just really curious to see if this section is going to be too bright, so we'll try it. I'm just going to take this section here. No, actually, it looks just fine. So we'll take this section here and we'll apply as much as we can, probably about there. And if I need to, I can use the rotate tool to rotate the image. That might not work, actually. I might actually reference from here, but we'll give it a go. I'll apply a mask here. And then what I can do is I can again reference, I can either work off of a black mask or a white mask. I'm just going to take this mask and make it black, which is going to turn this off. And then from here, I can actually paint on the part of my layer that I want to see. So it might be this section here. That might need some work. That needs some work. Yeah, I might actually reference the right-hand side rather than left-hand side. Let's just try this again here. I'm just going to hide this layer for now. I don't think I'm going to use it, but we'll see. We'll try this side instead. So I'll do one of these. I'll just reference from this side instead, see if it works better. Copy and paste. I can already tell you this is going to work way better. Yeah, it's going to work way better. Okay. I'll get rid of the section of the board in a moment here. Same process. I will move this up. I wonder why it's locked. The layers seem to be locked right now for some reason, which I'm not unsure of, but suppose it doesn't really matter. And I'll go through and I'll paint on the white section of my image here. So I'll paint this on. I'm going to actually remove this section right here and right here. I will add those, I'll fix those with a different copy. And let's see, I think I might take that out a little bit as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this interior section to fill in that. So I'll copy this original, or rather I'll make a new section here to copy from. And all I'm doing is I'm sort of applying these layers over and over and over again until we have fully justified our image here. So I'm going to go through and get rid of any hard borders on my image here. Yeah, there we go. There we are. And we're slowly working our way through our image here. This top section, so we have that to reference and that to reference. Maybe we should use this top section here and see how this fits. And slide this over. Oh, that actually works really well. Wow. Okay. Love when something works out. Once again, I'll just keep on applying that same black mask so I can choose which parts of my image I want to mask on. So we'll go like that. And then the last thing I want to fix is this section right here. And what I want to see if I can reference is something that's going to fill in that area nicely and not look too disruptive. Well, we'll see. I'll take this section here with the board. I'll go in, I'll make one more copy of this area here, and we'll paste it right here. And then what I need to do is, or rather what I should do is sort of erase some of this area where there's a little couple of elements here that I would want to sort of further address. But I'll take this layer, once again, make it black. There it is right here. And then I'll paste, or rather I'll brush on the area that I want to remove. Ooh. Is that big enough? Let's see. Maybe slide it over slightly. Yeah, that's better. And then I will remove this section. Oops, not too much. I want to make sure that the layer comes through here. There we go. So let's see, we got that layer right here. I might want to play around with that one here a bit more. Let's see if I can. And the nice thing about this process is I can, at any point, take certain layers and I can move them around. I can change their relationship on the image here. And at any point, if I don't like the mask that I have, I can remove the mask and go in and add another one. So if I don't like what I've created, I can go in and I can just adjust accordingly. So I can go in and I can just mask out just the subject matter here. Further, editing would be required. I'm not completely done here, but as you can see, this does feel justified in my image. There's maybe like a couple images here or a couple issues here. Like I can see a little bit of the coat, but not to spend a ton of time here, but I can fix these elements by just using the brush tool and coming in and editing them. But as you can see, this is because of the texture of our image and because there's no like rigid patterns here, and there's enough to actually reference from, we can go through and we can copy these sections and add them in and functionally remove that part of our image. And then from here, what I could do is I could actually resize my image. So if I was happy with the results so far, I could go in and I could center my image along the subject matter here. So I have this image that I can then play with and recenter based on the removal of this previous subject matter. I'll just keep that aside for now. Rob asked, in each area you change a separate mask, correct? Is there a mask the same? Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. So Rob, a mask is not a layer. They're different things. What I'm trying to showcase here is let's just take a selection of the sky here. I'm going to take a selection of my sky, pretty big one. And so as you can see, I've copied that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that onto my image here. And I'll move this, for some reason it won't allow me move it up. I think I'm having an issue with ACDSee currently. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Click commit. I will save this image as an ACDSee file, test file, and I'm just going to come back to this so I can showcase what I mean. Just saving my file right now as an editable file. So I'll navigate away from my image here, come back to it, and hopefully I should be able to move my files or my layers now again. Let's see. There we go. I don't know why it wasn't moving before, but it's moving now. Classic save situation. Okay, Rob. I have a layer here. It's in the center of my image. All I did was make a copy of my base layer, and then I pasted it in the center here. It's a circle. This is my layer. So we're going to treat this as, this could have been an image, like a base image, for example. But in this case, what it is, it's a copy of the pixel content of my base image. So an image layer is not a mask. So this would be an image layer. A mask is an effect that is applied to a layer. So we have our, let's just call this our circle. So this is our circle layer. When I go to add a mask, so I can add a mask to my layer by clicking on this section right here. What masks do is they operate as a way to select parts of your image and display them or hide them from view. Typically speaking, the way that that is interpreted when we're interacting with files is the color black on a mask. So this little box here next to your image layer. So I have my image layer right here. I have my mask right here. Once again, my image layer is on the left. My mask is on the right. When my mask is displayed as white, which it is right now, that means that the entirety of the pixels of my layer, the circle here, are presented to us. They are visible. When this box is black, I'm going to make it black by clicking invert. The entirety of my image, in this case the circle, is hidden from view. So this mask is controlling what I see. It's distinct from hiding a layer or making a layer, reducing the opacity on a layer, okay? It's different from that. What this circle allows me to do is select portions of my image to present to you. So if I was to take my brush here, my brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use white. I'm going to brush on white. By brushing on white, I'm going to make that part of my circle reappear. I'm going to make it visible again. So let's just showcase what I mean. There's a circle, there's a circle, there's a smiley face. If you look at our thumbnail here, our thumbnail presents to us the information that I've just drawn on, right? You can see that in my thumbnail, there's this little mask of the smiley face. And this mask showcases that the two eyes are turned on, the mouth is turned on. So I have this section of my mask is now white. So when I paint on white in a mask, what I'm doing is I'm making that part of my mask appear, and it's being presented to us. But my file has been here, or rather the circle image has been here the whole time. It's just the mask is changing what is visible to me. Inversely, if I was to use the black brush, right, I can brush that part of my mask off and therefore hide it from view. So what I've been doing so far in my image is I've been creating these copies of this section of my image. All these various sections I've been creating copies and I've been pasting them on. And when I do that, what I've been doing is I've been adding a mask. And the reason why I've been adding a mask is because of this. Let's go in and let's remove all of these masks from my image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove all these masks. When I go to remove these masks, what you're going to see is look how choppy and blocky my image looks now. You can see where all these parts are cut and pasted, right? So you can see that this is much less blended in. Well, what I've been doing this process when I've been going through and I've been adding these masks is I've been blending the edges of these files by masking them. I've been masking the edges that allows for them to basically live in the image in context. So if I was to actually go through and I'd undelete the masks that I have here, you can see that all these hard edges disappear and the blends come back. And that's what's enabling me to basically take these copies and then slowly brush them into context. Rob, does that make sense? Hopefully you understand the distinction between a image layer and a mask in this case. The image is just a copy of our base, in this case, a copy of our base image, which, has the contours of whatever we use to copy it, which in this case was the lasso tool. And then our masking is what we use to actually blend these parts of our images into our background. Yeah. So when I want to save my finished work, all I would do is I would just save it as an ACDSee file, which I've done. So I would go File, Save As, and I would save it as an ACDSee file. An ACDSee file is going to be non-destructive and something I can open up in the future. Alternatively, if I wanted to flatten all of these layers into one file to work from that in a new way, what I could do is I could go through and I could either let's see here. I think what I could do here, I think all I would just do is I would merge as a layer down. You can just merge layer downs. Yeah. Um, oops. Or I could also, alternatively, I could just save this as a JPEG file and then work from the JPEG once that subject matter has been taken out. So I could also go in and I could just, I don't know, save it as a test file. Sure. And then from here, yeah, click OK. And then this is a brand new image file. And now I can go in and I can actually change the relationship of the file a little bit, make it a bit more in context. Could maybe, add some levels, curves, fix the white balance, add a little bit of yellow to the image, what have you. But yeah, oh, thank you. Norm just said layer, flatten layer, which I think is discard. There is a layer function. Forgetting where it is. For some reason I'm forgetting this. Means let me open up my previous file and have a look. I'm forgetting this. I always just save them down as a JPEG, but it also does create a new file. So I don't know if that really addresses your concerns. Let's see, layer here, sorry. Yeah, Norm's just suggesting that you can flatten a layer, basically similar to what I did when I saved it as a JPEG. You could just flatten your image using this tool right here. So layer, flatten image. Um, Rob said, Norm, are you saying a layer is larger than a flattened image? Please clarify. Um, in an image that has all of these sublayers in it, like these layers with all these masks, this is going to be a much larger file than an image layer that has this flattened. So one of the things Norm's suggesting is if you intend to now, you don't care about the non-destructiveness of your image, you like the way it looks, you're ready to edit it further in a different way, what Norm is saying is that you can go in and you can flatten the image, and this is going to dramatically reduce the size of file size because an image that has all these layers and masks in them is inherently, there's a lot of data that's involved with those processes. So you can either save your image as a JPEG, and that's going to make the file size smaller, or you can go in and you can use the image layer flatten image to reduce the file size. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? If you can put them in Q&A, that'd be great. I see McAlpine's question. How do we get an email with Zoom link? I have oh, I see, I see. Um, uh, I believe I could be wrong. So Rodrigo's the one who schedules the emails with the workshops times in them. Um, but I believe that you can, when you go to set up for the on the Connect page, on ACDSee Connect page, I do believe you have the ability to like set a reminder for these events that you intend to go to. The other thing is I typically, although I didn't this time, I typically do send out reminders about a week out. So I'll make sure to do that for the next workshop. But hopefully that helps a bit, McAlpine. But I don't have control over who receives those emails. That's on Rodrigo's front. He's the other marketing, I guess like the front facing marketing person at ACDC. Yes, you can. In fact, actually, I am just about to upload my previous workshop, and I'm going to be uploading this workshop today as well. So we'll have both of those workshops on YouTube today. You can expect that a little bit later today, probably in about I want to say 4 hours. I should have them both there. Um, all of our workshops are on our YouTube page. Like I said, I typically get to them about a week or less. I will have a workshop uploaded. They're huge files, so they sometimes take a long time to download and then to actually go in and edit and render the file. But yeah, I will have those uploaded today. But yeah, they're always on our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is ACDSee Photo Studio. Hopefully, this was helpful to you today. So ACDSee/ACDSee Photo Studio. And then, yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me on Connect. If you have suggestions for future workshops, I'm always wanting to hear that information. Yeah, and I'll stick around for a couple minutes before I gotta go. And Norm said, "Hey, everybody, start posting on Connect." Yeah, that's our kind of like community hub on ACDC. It's actually got a huge amount of people that are on it now. But I feel like some people are obviously more active than others. But yeah, it's basically our Oh, David, I don't have an email for ACDC, but you can go to the Connect page and you can just personal message me there. So I'll just show you what I mean. So you would go to like a past workshop, for example, and if you click on one, like this one, spot removal, you can just click on my name here. And if you view my profile, you should be able to shoot me a message there. So there's yeah, you can go in and I believe it'll allow you to message me from this window. But yeah, that's a way of addressing complicated, non-linear ways of sort of doing removal or spot removal on an image. What I talked about today was we talked about sort of cloning, smart erase, and blended clone tools. We talked about their limitations. We talked about looking at particular images that I would argue are kind of unspot removable based on certain criteria. The criteria that we talked about were prevalence of or busyness of the image and existence of hard patterns versus an image that wasn't busy but had a hard didn't had a lot of frequency in its patterns with the waves and such, But because there's so much variation, copying and pasting there is going to be a much better method to address that issue than any other method. Um, Tristan, thank you so much. I'm great. I'm glad. Patrick, thank you. Al, I'm so glad you appreciate it. Yeah, and if you like the workshops and they're really valuable to you, you really like them, just please shoot us a message or ask for more workshops. We're always we want. Yeah, that would be really awesome if you have some sort of commentary, or something that you want to say to ACDC, just shoot them a message and ask for more because I really like doing them and I want to be able to do more. So thank you so much. Phil, I have upgraded from ACDC Pro 2024 to Ultimate. Big jump, good for you. I've been disappointed to find that I can no longer add text to an image. Oh, I remember when this change happened. I always added a personal credit to images that I send to people. How can I add text in Ultimate 2026? Okay, so Phil, there is an answer to this, and I will cover it. I think this is probably worth talking about in a workshop, if not a tutorial. I don't have time at the end of this workshop to touch base in regards to this, but I promise you, I will schedule a workshop talking about text in ACDC because there are ways, obviously, to add text. It's just you're wanting to know where they are and how it works. So I will make a note of myself and that I will schedule it. That will be the next workshop I schedule. How does that sound, Phil? Is that okay? Um, Watermark. Yeah, we'll do text and watermark. That's a good suggestion. Okay, we'll do Marissa and Phil's suggestion. I also haven't talked about it in like over a year since they made that user interface change. I remember they made that change. There's ways to do that, but it did freak a bunch of people out because they're like, what happened to my text tool? Which is fair. When something disappears, you want to know how to do it. It feels like a step backward. It's not. We made that a lot better, and I will show you how we made it better. Um, Oh, that's too bad. No. Okay. Well, Phil, we'll talk about it. I promise you. Okay. And the other thing too is I will schedule a workshop for that and I'll talk about it in a lot of depth. But I will also make a little short tutorial just showcasing how to add text in ACDC as well, because it's worth just a short tutorial too. I feel like that maybe will answer your question in the short term, and then we'll talk about it in way more depth in a workshop. But yeah, it is something that's come up for a couple times. People were saying, "Hey, I need to know where this is," and it maybe deserves a little bit of content and attention because I haven't talked about it in over a year. So, good suggestion. Um, yeah, thank you, Not. Thank you, Ray. Awesome. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, I'll probably take off. And if you have any further questions, shoot me a message on Connect. Well, Rob, sorry, Rob had one more question maybe before I go. When repairing a small area, for example, a dark area under one's eyes, I can't get away from using a clone showing unwanted areas on the paste. Solution. Can I make a different suggestion for something like that, Rob? I'll just showcase it really quickly. What I would recommend doing is, I wonder if I feel like I'm just trying to showcase this as fast as possible. I don't know what your situation is with your images, but something that's really useful is there's the face tool. Go in on face edit, and we have this function for underneath the eyes. Have you seen this? Are you familiar with this tool, Rob? If you are, let me know. I'm just trying to find where it is. It might be under skin, crow's feet. That's the crow's feet. There is a method by which okay, so you're familiar with that. Okay, so we'll skip. Well, if you already are aware of removing that, the other thing I would suggest is what you could do is you could go in and rather than doing this whole clone process, you could go through and okay, so you don't want to copy and paste. What you could do is you could do a repair tool and use heal on it to sort of heal out some of the lines that appear. Let me see if I can reference something a bit here. That's actually not working very well either. Maybe just trying to think of one other method too, because you don't want to use, they're so small, it's not useful to you. What about, okay, if I was to add a little spot of color, I'm just adding a new layer. I'm searching for this color, say, and we'll go in and we'll just brush on, and then we will add a layer, and we will do a little touch up on this, lower the opacity, and just do a simple remove a little bit around the edge. That removes the harshness underneath the eye. So all I did here, Rob, was add a blank layer. And then I added a skin color adjacent to the one that I wanted to fill. And then with that, I made a little mask around my subject, or in this case, my little area here. And then I just reduced the opacity so it wasn't this like, blob of color. And then I just went in and I kind of got rid of the edges a little bit using the same method I talked about today as a way to sort of address that under eye color. And I guess you can see the difference there, like the one on the left versus the one on the right. And you can scale that as large or as little as you want. And the nice thing about this too is you can go in, you could add multiple sections of color. It doesn't have to be just like one color that you add, it's multiple. So that might be a method. Norm's suggesting that dodge as a function works here as well, just to go in and use the opposing. So adding light to that area would be a way to approach that as well. Anyway, those are some ideas. Unfortunately, I can't stick around for too much longer. But Rob, is that somewhat helpful? I can also create a tutorial talking about that in a bit more depth. So let me know what you think. Yeah, those are some different approaches that dodging being one that was mentioned by Norm, and then also, yeah, just using a color infill on this with a slight degree of opacity adjustments. Okay. All right, well, this was very generative in terms of content. I'll make a tutorial on that. I'll make a tutorial on the text tool, and then I'll schedule a workshop for talking about the text tool in more detail. Okay, I gotta go. Great. That's awesome, people. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for participating. That's sort of it for the workshop today. I will schedule a workshop not for, I think the next one will be the 20th, and I will schedule one for the 6th as well. And then Rodrigo, I believe, has a workshop that he's doing on the 27th. So participate in that one if you can. Okay, folks, thank you. I need to find a pen to write all these ideas down. Okay, I'm going to mute my mic for a moment here, and I'll close the workshop in a little bit just so you have a chance to check through the comments or anything like that you need to do. Okay.